And then the last thing I'm going to show you before we jump into the questionnaire here is what makes our providers different. In-house IT only, you don't get all of these things. Doing business with an MSP that's not cybersecurity certified, hasn't become an MSSP, doesn't offer CISO services, this document here spells out the providers that we're going to bring into the equation, what makes them uniquely different than what you're probably doing today. Because the bottom line is 90% of the time when we have a conversation with a customer, these things are not being applied. They're not being done. So you're going to see, you're probably happy with the people that you're doing business with today. I don't know, you're going to tell me that when we get in the audit, right? You may or may not be happy with them. But at the end of the day, what you're going to get educated on is whether or not they're staying up to speed with standards in the industry to keep your business protected. And at the end of the day, that's what you have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure is being done. So I'm going to share all this with you after our audit here today, but I just wanted to walk you through it before we actually got into the questionnaire. So Mr. Customer, based on everything you've said here today, any questions before I actually start asking you about the details of what you're doing? And then they're probably going to say no. And then I would say, based on what you just saw, right? How do you feel about how protected you are today from a cybersecurity perspective? Now's where we want to get the customer talking, right? And before I even go into the audit and ask them the questions, I would get their response. And they might say something like, we don't have any of that. We need all of that. Or we're doing some of that, or, you know, depending on their demeanor and how interested they are in the conversation and actually solving these problems, they may be super engaged. They may not be engaged at all, right? That's where your salesmanship and your ability to build a relationship are really coming into play here. But once we educate them on those things, now, Mr. Customer, really quickly, I'm going to walk through the questionnaire here. Right, so I just got a few questions with you. We start at the top. Tell me about the company, right? About you, customer profile. You probably already got some of this from the conversation, right? Like you're typing in this as the customer is talking. So you just go down the customer number of workstations, how many servers, right? Ask everything highlighted is relevant for you to gather, okay? And then obviously a big question in green, what is your budget? If you have a budget, great. If they don't have a budget, could you create a budget? Because we don't want to waste your time or ours. The typical response is, yeah, we could create a budget for these things if it's decided that they're needed, obviously, right? But definitely ask the question. IT staffing, project management, you know, this questionnaire, you are going to decide, right, how much of these questions are relevant. I'd never go verbatim down this list. Andrew, what about you, man? When you do the P1 questionnaire here, how specific are you sticking to every single one of these questions?
It just depends. I don't always stick to every one of them. I mean, some of it you gather by, you know, finding out some of the answers to the other questions or maybe what they say in passing. So I don't necessarily go by line for line.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to know what's important, right? Like you want to know the number of machines, workstations they have, right? You want to get the customer profile. All this information appears for the MSPs, the managed services. This is really important stuff that they care about, right? IT staffing, I've usually skipped that. Project management, right? Do you have any open IT projects right now that you could use help with, right? Or that are coming up on the radar? That's normally the way in the door for MSPs. A company has an IT project, they don't want to mess with it, they want to outsource it, right? So we'll pull in our MSP to do the project, and then it'll progress to a hybrid or a full-blown MSP solution. Backup cloud and DR, how are you backing up your services today? How much data do you have? That's really the question, right? How are you backing up today? How much data do you have? And then are you doing the trifecta? You have active data, you have a local backup, and you have cloud backup. If they're not doing the trifecta, active data, local backup, and offsite cloud backup, well, they're not doing it right. And we want to build a solution to show them, hey, here's a local NAS device on site that backs it up, right? If nothing happens to your facility, we can go right to that, get the data, or we can back it up in cold storage or real time, depending on the business needs. And that's cloud. Like cloud is super simple. cybersecurity, right? Ask these questions because this is primarily what we're going to want to build a solution around, right? Coming in and giving them a cybersecurity solution. And again, you'll determine as you go through this which ones are more important than others. Phone service. Phone service is the most profitable thing that we sell. We want to find out how much phone service and with who they have, because we want to move it to Access or Global Voice every single time, or one of our or Pantera, right? If it's a strategic partnership and an appointment for them. So just so you guys know, Pantera is a provider in our portfolio that we're going to be selling in the future. So if you find yourself working an opportunity with a Pantera rep, then we'll sell the voice for them. Otherwise, it'll go to Access and it'll go to Global Voice. Bandwidth, we have Global Access, and we have Massive Networks. Massive Networks is multi-location only. Secondary bandwidth, cable, whatever, SD-WAN can go through Global or Massive, and then mobility, two-way direct, and that's it, right? At that point, once I've asked all those questions, I'm then going to the stop sign. I'm saying, okay, Mr. Customer, based on what we discussed here today, here's the stop signs that you have from a cybersecurity perspective. And I'm showing them this, right? And I am referring to my notes, right, of what they have. So you might have 2 copies of this, right? So you can literally copy on it. Have just a version of the CEW, the customer experience workbook, that you're not using.